Welcome back. Recently, the Senate Democratic majority announced the passing of a COVID 19 Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act, the strongest bill in the nation to block eviction proceedings from going forward. Months ago, Project Parachute, a philanthropic fund, began working with community based organizations like Enterprise Community Partners to reach low income New Yorkers and provide much needed resources and services to tenants impacted by COVID 19. Joining us now to share more is Michael Collins. Michael Collins is the Senior Program Officer of Most Vulnerable Populations at Enterprise Community Partners. Welcome, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Just to start, can you tell us more about Enterprise Community Partners and your mission?
Absolutely. So, Enterprise Community Partners is the only national nonprofit that addresses America's affordable housing crisis from every angle. We really have worked to combine 40 years of experience, thousands of local partners, and expertise from over 1,100 employees nationwide. Our mission is simple, and it is just to make home and community places of pride, power, and belonging, and platforms for resilience and upward mobility for all.
Thank you, Michael. Can you share more about Project Parachute's philanthropic fund and why your nonprofit decided to join this initiative?
So, Project Parachute is a coalition of property owners, nonprofits, and city agencies committed to helping vulnerable and underserved New York residents stay in their homes as the COVID 19 crisis continues, and do so through its program FASTEN. Funds and services for tenants experiencing need, which offers eviction prevention services and financial resources, including rent relief. The initiative was seeded by the Real Estate Board of New York and the New York State Association for Affordable Housing, with over $4.4 million in philanthropic support from more than 30 property owners, with the explicit goal of expanding the capacity of community based service providers to deliver eviction prevention services. That includes supports and services for those who would otherwise slip through the safety net, including undocumented immigrants and shadow economy workers. To date, Project Parachute has raised about $11.6 million through additional philanthropic funds toward a goal of about $15 million. We in getting involved, we wanted to support New Yorkers in the wake of this unprecedented crisis, uh, which has had a disproportionate impact on communities of color and people of color who have already faced housing insecurity before the crisis. These groups also, as we look ahead, are being disproportionately impacted by COVID, both health wise and economically. Additionally, this program is something that really plays to our strength, and our ability to really manage cross sector collaboration and to really develop innovative programs.
And thank you, Michael. And as we know, we're 9 months into the pandemic right now, and many tenants are fearing eviction throughout the pandemic. How does this fund aim to protect tenants even after the eviction moratorium expires?
So the eviction moratorium is really critical for immediate security. And also, we have to acknowledge that this is a temporary fix as arrears are building. The buildup in arrears really put renters at risk of eviction once the moratoria is lifted, as well as puts the city's affordable housing stock at risk of deterioration. The primary goal of Project Parachute really is to ensure that New Yorkers remain in their homes by providing immediate financial assistance and mediation, as well as connections to resources and services that can help families stabilize more long term. While the programmatic components of the initiative definitely connect tenants to supports and financial resources, the initiative also supports advocacy efforts to increase funding for rental assistance and for more equitable, humane eviction processes. It's simply just not enough to ensure that someone's arrears are covered, but we, through Project Parachute, are working to foster practices and promote policies that halt the eviction process early and foster greater partnership between tenants and landlords that keeps people in their homes.
And who qualifies for the FASTEN program? Let's say someone is listening right now and they're interested in inquiring about this service. Who can qualify for it and how can they reach out to Project Parachute?
Okay. So, Funds and Services for Tenants Experiencing Need is a program that provides clients with, again, rental arrears assistance and landlord mediation legal assistance where needed to help them remain housed in the immediate crisis once this eviction moratoriums are lifted. It also helps them to stabilize more holistically with resources like food relief, affordable health services and utilities, arrears assistance, and helping them to sustain stable housing through access to financial counseling, job search assistance, and other referral services. Individuals and families who would be eligible uh, for FASTEN services include those who have income that is no more than 50% of the area median income or AMI, those who are experiencing housing instability, such as an inability to pay rent fully, and have experienced a negative COVID related financial impact, such as a loss of income or an increase in expenses. I think one thing that I want to highlight about the program is that anyone who meets these requirements can receive assistance regardless of immigration status or employment status through nonprofit providers.
And Michael, how have the funds been distributed, and what percentage of these funds went to the Bronx, here in the Bronx in this borough?
Thank you. So the distribution of funds to providers is really based on a number of factors, including COVID impact, housing stability, and impacted industries within each provider service areas. Neighborhoods in the Bronx were among the hardest hit by COVID, and so the borough received the largest allocation of funds at 30%, 32% of
Wow,
resources raised for this initiative have been awarded to providers in the Bronx.
that's wonderful to hear. And the initiative is still going on for folks that need the assistance as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is. We're yes, yes.
And Michael, can you tell us about the importance of working with and serving the most vulnerable, including undocumented immigrants, through your services?
Yes, so Project Parachute and the FASTEN Program, in their inception, were really an attempt to provide much needed supports and services to those who otherwise have no resources available to them. Project Parachute enables community based nonprofit provider partners to really reach people who are not eligible for other forms of public assistance, including undocumented workers and those in non standard employment as identified by providers.
Thank you, Michael. And as we stated in the beginning, the Senate Democratic majority recently met to pass a COVID-19 Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act. What does this act mean, and how is your organization feeling about the future and security of tenants in New York City?
So since the beginning of the pandemic, eviction moratorium have been vital to keeping people safely housed and out of housing court, despite the unprecedented economic vulnerabilities and housing instability. We applaud the state legislator and the governor for their leadership in passing the Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act. This act is a necessary step forward, replacing the patchwork of legislation, executive orders, and court actions with more comprehensive protections for renters who have suffered financial hardship and property owners who are having trouble covering the cost of utilities and maintenance. However, this legislation, like all eviction moratoria, is a temporary measure that stalls rather than prevents an eviction crisis. This legislation does not address the buildup in arrears, a critical component of keeping people housed long term. And really, unless these arrears are addressed by expanding access to new and existing forms of rental assistance, tenants will still be at risk of eviction when moratoria end, and the city's affordable housing stock is at risk of deterioration.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Before we let you go, how can people stay in touch and find out more about Enterprise Community Partners and Project Parachute? Is there still time to apply? If so, can you please share how people can apply?
Absolutely. So you can learn more about Enterprise and Project Parachute by visiting the website www.projectparachute.nyc. There is still time to apply, and we are encouraging folks to do so now, despite the moratoria. Impacted tenants can access Project Parachute assistance through the 7 community based partners who are also New York City's home based providers. They can do so by calling 311, visiting the Project Parachute website, or by contacting their local home based provider directly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. I know one of those partners is Bronx Works, our very good friend here at BronxNet. So if folks can call 311 and get that information, that would be great. Michael Collins is a senior program officer of most vulnerable populations at Enterprise Community Partners. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Again, you can visit projectparachute.nyc for more information and enterprisecommunity.org. We'll be right back.